Hello, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel. My name is Amy and this is amie.marie.art. On today's episode, we're going to be painting the very last of the three little mice, and his name is Duncan. So grab a coffee, grab a drink if you like, sit back and relax, and I hope you enjoy the video. Let's get to it. The last mouse. Duncan is the last of the three, and we're starting him off with the same light grey base coat. While I'm painting Duncan, I have a question to ask you. At the moment, I'm doing small sections of the painting and showing pretty much every brushstroke that I do and then just speeding it up. So my question to you is, do you want me to continue with this format, or would you rather see more of the painting in one video but not every brushstroke, if that makes sense? So instead of doing just one character at a time and showing the entire thing sped up, maybe I could do, you know, 2 or 3 of the characters, especially if they're a bit smaller, and then just kind of skip out some of the bits. So for instance, if I'm base coating, maybe not show me starting the base coating and then, you know, skip to the details. And that way I can fit more into a video but not have it go as long. Or do you prefer to see the whole thing sped up? Let me know in the comments. It's just something that I'm kind of toying with to see which way is going to work better. As you all know, I'm still finding my feet on the whole videoing and painting at the same time, so any feedback is always good feedback and very welcomed. With the other 2 mice, you might remember that I went over that initial fur quite heavily and kind of dulled down any of the individual brush strokes to kind of push the mice back a little bit further. I haven't had to do too much with Duncan, and that's because he's a little bit closer to the camera, or I guess closer to the viewer, than what the other 2 mice were. So it was just a couple of touch-ups and then onto the clothes. A little bit about Duncan. Duncan's character, well, he's the clumsiest one of the 3. He's always falling over things or falling off things. He's always tripping over, and I can guarantee you, if there is something on the floor to trip over, Duncan will find it. And this has led to him getting himself into some quite sticky situations. I guess he's very lucky that he has a brother who is the night mouse to constantly look after him and make sure that he's not getting into too much trouble. And in this picture, Duncan was originally trying to climb the clock. He thought it would be a great idea to climb to the top, just like in the story. But Duncan being Duncan, he slipped and he has fallen. But luckily, he had his umbrella to glide down safely to the ground. Now that we've had a bit of a backstory on Duncan, I'll get back to the painting techniques that I'm doing. I've painted Duncan's suit in a pretty similar colour to what I've done Marcel's hat and Teddi's suit. And this is because, although these are separate characters, I am trying to make sure that the whole artwork ties in together and doesn't look too mismatched, or making sure that things don't look too out of place. If I was to use different bright colours on every character, once the painting was finished and you took that step back, it would look really busy and things would clash against one another, and I guess I'm just trying to stick to a limited color palette. Onto the umbrella now, and starting off with the handle. I'm going for an old antique wooden style handle for this umbrella. It kind of matches in with this suit a little bit. And it definitely makes it much easier for him to hold on to without falling off it. A few more little highlights and shadows on the actual handle and hand, and then it's onto the shade part of the umbrella. I'm painting the umbrella red, and as you can see here, that first coat really didn't go down very well. I use a wet palette when I'm painting, so the paint stays moist without drying up for a good couple of weeks or longer. And I was trying to use up the paint that I had used on Teddi and on the night, but by this stage it was getting a little bit watery, so I let that dry and swap up my paints. I do try to use the paint. I don't like to waste paint. If I can use up what I've already got on the palette, even if it's for a different project, then I will. It's a lot cheaper that way. But it does get to the point eventually where I've sprayed it with water too many times and the pigment starts to be a little bit more sparse. So it's time for some fresh paint. And you can see here it looks a lot better now that I've used some fresh red paint. I mixed in a little bit of burnt umber and black into that red to get that toned down, darkened, shadowed area underneath the umbrella. Onto the highlights now, and to get this shade of pinky red, I mixed in some white into the red, which then gives me a fairly bright pink, and I added just a touch of black to tone back that pink and desaturate it, which has given me a very nice light red color. I'm now going in with a little bit of white for those brightest highlights, then softening those edges off with a damp brush. For these shadows, I'm using a watered down burnt umber. Didn't want to use black for these shadows because they're not that deep. And now I'm knocking it all back with a very watered down red wash. Actually, I ended up using that really watery paint from the first base coat, so I do like to use up paint. I hate wasting art supplies, so I avoid it whenever I can. To highlight Duncan's suit, I've mixed in quite a bit of white into that original base colour and then watered it down a fair bit. Once I've done a section of highlight, I wipe my brush on a towel and then soften up those edges. To finish off Duncan, I'm using a burnt umber wash all over the umbrella, the suit and his fur. And that's because he's Duncan. He's always getting messy. And Duncan is done. And that's it for today's video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you like the new setup. I've done a little bit of redecorating, so let me know what you think down in the comments. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more, please hit the like button and the subscribe button. It really will help me out. And if you've got friends and family that you think might enjoy them, feel free to share it with them. Okay, I hope to see you in the next one. Catch ya!